Hey, thank you for coming by. It is oh my God, can it be? It's soon to be the 30th. We're the day before Halloween. Yep, it's happening. All right, so over on Tony Ortega's site, The Underground Bunker, we posted a few videos on, Michael Pattinson had posted one on Xenu explaining that, and then I posted some older videos that I'd made about OT7. And a couple of people asked me things that I wanted to just make a video on because it's easier to do that than try to type it all out because it's too long. One of them, someone asked me over on my YouTube, on one of my earlier videos recently, to tell about CMO, if I can, which is just, I only have a little bit to say about that, but I will, the part that I know, which is kind of funny. But, and the other one is 6-month checks, right? Because, okay, so I'm going to explain both of them. CMO is the Commodore's Messengers org. Generally, it was Hubbard on the ship originally, and he had these young kids, and he made them into the Commodore's messengers. That's what they were. They were messengers. They brought around things, but he gave them a great deal of power. So now that they're on land at Flag, I sec-checked some of the CMO, and I was amazed to find out the power. Well, two things. One is that they're really goofy when they're not on post, right? And having rubber band fights and stuff like that. But then when they're off post, like I needed to go, and I've told this before, but if you haven't heard it, it's kind of amazing. I needed to go like from point A to point B at Flag, like just literally down a corridor. And I started to walk down there. Now I'm OT7 at the time, right? Which is second to the top as far as auditing. And I start to walk down there. Most of the staff aren't even clear, right? So that's like, way down from where I am up here, right? And I start to walk down this hallway and they go, no, this is confidential. No one's allowed on this hallway. And I go, okay. And I have to get over to that other side. I forget what it was. I had to get a folder or something. I had to get something. And I think, I know, CMO, right? And so I go get one of the guys that I was sec checking. And I said, can you help me? And he goes, yeah, sure. What do you need? And I said, I just need to get through that hallway. But for some reason, they won't let me go by myself. And he goes, okay, I'll escort you. And the guy just completely changes from, just this nice young kid to like, all right, puts on his hat, starts walking along, and they're all like, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And he's just like, nodding. And I mean, it was just incredible to see the difference in this guy from who he was off post and me talking to him to who he was on post, and that he could get me through this hall. I couldn't as OT7, but he had the power to do that. So that's mainly what I know. The other thing about CMO that's really funny is, you hear a lot about how the Sea Org have pretty, just regular eating to bad. If they're on the RPF, which is their slave camp, it's awful. If they're just on the general Sea Org, it's still pretty bad. Okay, so I was there doing student training, which is just students from around the world come in there and train. And I was in there where they were eating. And they had awful food. I mean, it was literally like just slop that was brought in. And I was like, I can't eat this. I was on kind of a sugar-free diet at the time. And this other guy who's now an executive at Flag, or was at the time, later, he became an executive at Flag. But he was on a special diet too. And so I thought, oh, wait a minute. I've got these CMO guys who I've heard from talking to them in session, they have great food, right? So I thought, I'll go in to go see one of my PCs. And I walk through this door, literally. I mean, it's like here I am on this side, and I walk through into this side. That's all it was. I open a door. Here they are with, slop food on a tray. People are like fighting to just sit down. They're grabbing food. I mean, it's just awful. And I walk through the door, and here's just this array. And there was no fruits or vegetables. And on our side, there was none. It was just like some old, bread and some meat. It was really bad. So I walked through this door, and here's this just array of fresh vegetables and fruits and cheeses and, just tons of food. I mean, it was just unbelievable that between a door, there could be this many people over here eating really junky food and these many people over here eating fabulously. And so I thought, you know what? And this is really funny because I was a sec checker, which is where you're supposed to be getting off someone's overs or their bad deeds, right? You're not really auditing. The first thing you start out with is, I'm not auditing you. And then you have to go through these questions and ask them different things. And I was trying to be nice to people, but it was one of those things. It was I was only doing it so that I could do the next level of co-auditing that I was doing. And you had to be a sec checker to do the next level of co-auditing. So did it for that. But I realized, now, wait a minute. If we sneak in there, we can get some fruit, we can get some vegetables, and we can get some cheese for him, for the guy that became the executive. So I went in to see my PC, said hi, which is your pre-clear, the person you're auditing, said hi, grabbed some cheese, a big thing of cheese, and some, grapes and fruit and all kinds of shit. We would stash it in the freezer in the back. But it's so funny to think, here I am, a sack checker at Flag, having to steal food so that I can feed myself because the food they're serving is so awful. And that the guy that did it with me ended up being an executive at Flag, which is really funny. I don't know if he's still there or not. I don't. But anyway, those are my CMO stories that I know right now. I'm sure there's other people that know tons of funnier ones. But anyway, actually, this went on longer than I thought, so I'll do a separate one with the 6-month check one, because this kind of went on longer than I thought. But that's the CMO. That's my little stories on the CMO. I've heard tons of stories about the CMO, because it's a totally different life than what most people live. So it's kind of an amazing, and rarely, you can't even walk in the building. I remember they would let me in because I was helping OSA, but it was like, I was on OT7. It was like, oh, no, this is CMO. You can't come in here. It's like, who are these people? It was very unusual, very unusual. And again, for people that are watching this, most people, you're like, why would you stay? So you have to always keep in mind the original, the concept when most of us got in was in the late 60s, early 70s, or earlier. And, a lot of stuff was changing in the world then. A lot of us came from, I was a hippie in San Francisco. There were a lot of people, I'd left college. A lot of people had left college. There were it was just a whole different thing. There was no internet, so you had no access to the information that you guys all have now. But thank you for coming here. I hope you enjoyed my CMO story. Let me know if you did, because I really didn't know if, someone asked me to tell it, so I told it. There you go. I love you guys. Have an excellent, on to Halloween. If I don't talk to you, have a very happy Halloween. Bye-bye.